Good evening and welcome to the January 13th Special Council Budget Meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in this open meeting. Attend in person at the North Dumfries Community Complex. You can attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. You can watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page, and written comments to the Clerk's Division that were provided to council members will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, and can I have approval of the agenda, please, Councilor Rowland?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Wilms, that council adopt the January 13th, 2025 special budget meeting council agenda as presented with the following addendum. Add correspondence received from Connie Tanner regarding refugee services to item 6.2, part 4.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I would now like to be the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe and neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. And the multitude of events I go to, I hear many Indigenous acknowledgements, but also a lot of Indigenous speakers I've heard lately. And in every single time, they don't talk of the negatives, they talk about respect for the earth, respect for our world, respect for one another. And it's quite heartwarming because they seem very open, very kind, very gentle, very accepting. If we could all act just like that, I think it would be a better world. So let's just reflect on that for a moment. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of clear interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. 6.1, report number clerk 01/2025, proposed amendments to the 2025 council meeting schedule. Staff employees recommending a special budget meeting schedule for February. Meeting scheduled for February 3rd at 6 p.m. Be rescheduled to the 19th at 6 p.m. Are there any questions or comments from council or public office? No, seeing that, can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly, that CLK report number 01-2025 be received, and that council amend the 2025 council meeting schedule by canceling the special council budget meeting on Monday, February 3rd at 6 p.m. and rescheduling the special council budget meeting to Wednesday, February 19th at 6 p.m.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. 6.2 is report number FIN 01/2025, the 2025 draft budget. The draft 2025 budget book was released on December 9th, 2024, and is available for viewing on the Township website. Are there any members of the public in attendance who wish to speak to the 2025 draft budget who are not already registered as speakers? Seeing none, Council, would you allow for the two registered speakers to speak before we get into the budget? Agreement, thank you. So the Air Rockets are up first. Do we have somebody from the Air Rockets that would like to come up and speak, please? Come to the podium, please state your name. Thank you.
We have as well some handouts.
Can you just have me down in the mirror? Thank you. Thank you. Maybe if you could give one to Scott, could you give one to your news as well, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak. We are responding to an email that will be discussed a little bit later in the meeting. That Connie Tanner sent to Mayor Sue Foxton on January 9th, 2024. In the email, it stated that the Air Rockets are telling local girls there is no team for them to play on because the spot was filled by a participant from outside the township, and that the Air Rockets are not providing spots for local Air girls to play hockey. For the 2024-2025 season, we have created additional teams to provide more hockey to local girls than ever before. However, as a small town, we have noticed that some birth years have smaller registration numbers year over year than others, and this past season, the Rockets were forced to cancel the U18 local league as only 7 players registered. We think perhaps this was a situation with the basis of the above claim. We emailed, called, made social media posts, and tried to convince those who did not register to please do so, but with no luck. Some of those players chose to play in other organizations or where their high school friends play. The Rockets were forced to cancel this team, and we as a volunteer board worked hard to see that all players that had originally registered with us found a new team to play on with other local organizations. This is not the first time we have struggled with low registration for a specific age group. Over the years, if we knew in advance that we were going to be low in numbers for a team, we invited all parents involved to a meeting and would vote on what the majority wanted to do. We bring up both these, so in this past year, we had that with the U15, and we ended up voting to make a B team. We all made sure the local league players had a spot on that team if they so chose, and 2 took us up on that offer. 1 decided to play locally in Cambridge. We bring up both these specific scenarios to highlight some of our challenges and to outline how we as a board do our best to ensure all local girls that want to play are able to. I would like to discuss the proposed change in the email about the ice time, about reducing the 75%, that we only pay 75% of the total cost. I have included and given out to the board, to the council, estimates of our expected ice usage for 2024-2025 season. The numbers up until January are accurate. We are just estimating for the last of the season till April. So if we were to move the general rate to the general rate of $270 after tax, currently we pay $203 an hour, tax included. Our cost for the next season would rise from $151,000 to over $200,000 in ice costs, just for our association alone. This equates to over $50,000 that would fall to our organization and to our players. In recent years, even with charging our players $100 more than the other local girls hockey organizations, utilizing grants, sponsorships, and fundraising, the Rockets' financials fluctuate up and down year to year. We are a not-for-profit composed of volunteers who put in hundreds of hours each season to create an environment where any child who wants to participate is able to do so. We do our best to keep rates affordable so we can continue to provide hockey for girls in our community. This increase in ice costs would force the Rockets to raise registration rates by almost $300 per player to dollar for dollar cover this cost. This now becomes approximately $400 more than any other girls hockey association in the region of Waterloo. As Connie will state in her email, the OHF has opened the borders for the OMHA and allowed player movement. This has always been the case for OWHA. This just makes it easier for girls to leave. We have to be affordable, we have to be competitive, we have to provide quality programming so that they want to stay here and here. I did on the back of there is a discussion about the surrounding municipality rates for the different organizations. The airplanes have one as well that they will present. As we're a little bit current, I think ours are the 2023-2024 rates. But either way, if you look, you can see that everywhere, the city of Waterloo, city of Cambridge, city of France, all offer youth sports rates that are quite a bit lower than their general public rate. You can also see that the girls hockey registration rate, we already charge, like I said, almost $100 more than the other local areas. So while increasing the cost to the different local ice sports in town may seem good on paper, it will already put us way more over the regional average, and it would decimate registration numbers in the Air Rockets and Air Minor Hockey Association and the Air Skating Club. And it would be unaffordable for families to continue, and the organizations, I don't see how they could continue with that. So in closing, I would just like to ask that the council continue to support the local ice sports in town the way the rest of the region of Waterloo does for their associations.
Thank you. Is there any questions, Council? Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do you know just approximately the number of non-resident players that play?
I don't have that number on the top of my head. I know the majority is still air. The issue sometimes we run into is that, do we count someone from Drumbo that is in our catchment, that in our mission statement, who does not necessarily have any other girls hockey? What about St. George? What about Glen Morris? Like, there are some that this is the closest place for them to come to. So we've always had a struggle. Do we look at just that? Do we look at air girls? What do we include when we say local? I know that our numbers are majority Rockets as well. If you look at the lower age groups, those get higher and higher to Rockets, whereas the older girls they tend to want to maybe go with high school friends or move elsewhere. And there's a lot more movement year to year in the older age groups. We could provide that number at a later date if the council wants.
It's just for our information, so,
Of course.
we get these emails, and
Yeah.
there's statistics in the email.
Yeah, I would say.
And
that
then,
you-
for example, I had reached out to Joshua about, registration with air minor hockey,
Mhm.
and there's conflicting reports on the numbers. We just want to understand them, from all perspectives.
I'd say that we did a quick look today, and as we talked about before, OWHA allows player movement, so there is more movement year over year, and these numbers fluctuate every year. I'd say we'd probably be looking at 65 to 70% of local girls.
Any other questions? Just when you said it was an increase of $300 per player, so what is the?
Yeah,
payment
so
now?
we looked at our, pardon?
What is an individual player paying now?
So for the basic registration, we pay 675 a player.
So would it be a 900?
Yeah. So that's if I took out our registration this year is approximately 185 players, which is the most it's ever been. If I took that into 50,000, divided by 185, I think it was like $275, $280 a player.
This council has talked about how much rain there is in the average household right now.
And we do
I
have,
hope you keep that in consideration when we talk about this.
and that is per player. We do have some families that have 3 or more players that play, and especially if you go between Rockets and Air Minor Hockey and Air Skating Club.
There is some associations that assist with hockey registration for individuals. Do we have that in there? Or
I believe that there are some, I don't know if Air itself, the Air Rockets does not have a specific one. If something is brought to the board, we can vote to help and to reduce registration costs on a case by case basis. There are, I know, different sponsorships available that parents can apply for outside of the Air Rockets. And I know we do have one family that takes advantage of that.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Joshua Yost. Josh? If you're behind the podium. There you are.
Get right into it. Members of the town council and esteemed members of our community. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. I stand before you to advocate for the continuation of the youth sports discount for ice rental at our local rinks. This initiative has not only proven beneficial, but also essential for fostering an active, healthy, and engaged group of youth in our community. I'd like to first address the open border rules coming from the Ontario Hockey Federation, which includes Air Minor Hockey. While this will allow youth players to play in whichever association they choose, it is unlikely that MHA will see a large increase or influx of players joining our association from other centers. We offer hockey classified as a B center. It will be much more likely our members will attempt to play at a higher level, such as A level that is offered in Kitchener, Cambridge, and Brant. All the previously mentioned centers also offer B hockey, so those players are unlikely to come here to play a similar level of hockey that they can already play in their own center. I would now like to address the importance of accessible recreational activities for all of the families in this town and catchment. The youth sports discounts on ice rentals have made it possible for many families, especially those who might be facing adverse socioeconomic constraints, to engage in this beneficial sport. Ice skating and hockey are not merely pastimes, they are avenues for physical fitness, teamwork, and personal development. By ensuring that our youth can afford to participate, we are promoting a healthier lifestyle that can have lasting benefits, including social, emotional, and physical into adulthood and beyond. Moreover, these discounts help to cultivate a strong, diverse, and inclusive sense of community. When our young people gather at the rink, they're not just skating, they are building friendships, learning valuable social skills, and creating memories that will last a lifetime. Events at the rink become opportunities for families to come together, foster a spirit of camaraderie, and connection that strengthens our community fabric. Additionally, supporting youth participation in sports can lead to a decrease in juvenile delinquency by providing an outlet for energy and creativity. We can help steer our youth away from negative influences and towards constructive, healthy activities. The rink has become a safe haven for young people, where young people can thrive, and we must continue to support it. Finally, let us consider the long-term impact of these discounts. Engaging our youth today ensures that they will grow into active, involved citizens tomorrow. I myself am a graduate of AMHA, and one of the many reasons I returned to this community to raise my family was due to the friendships and relationships that grew in the AMHA program. And I hope for the same for my children as they grow here. By investing in our young people now, we are investing in the future of our town. They are not just the leaders of our tomorrow, they are the heart of our community today. In conclusion, I urge you to recognize the value of continued youth discounts for ice rental. Let us prioritize the health, well-being, and engagement of our youth by ensuring they have access to the opportunities that make our town vibrant and united. Thank you for your attention and for your commitment to our young people and our community.
Thank you, Joshua. Any questions, Council? Just, so what is the registration for my?
We are 356 members, and we have about 5 NRP players that are non-registered.
But what is the
non-resident.
cost if I wanted to register?
Our cost is from $650 to $800 for your original cost.
So if you up that and then
We will be,
over
we'll be a
1,000.
minimum of 300. Our cost would increase over $110,000 on our yearly budget. It'll be 300 plus per member.
Yeah, I raised 3 children and they all were on the ice. And that would be $3,000 in my pocket from my family. Plus my husband and I. Anyways, thank you so much, Joshua. If there's no other questions. And the motion, please, Councillor Tilly.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Osmer, the presentation received from registered speaker from the Air Rockets and Air Minor Hockey be received with thanks.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And if no one else wishes to speak on this? Thank you. Okay, next is the most important part of the night. Christine Brock's the draft 2025 budget book was released, as I said before. Christine Brock's Treasurer Director of Corporate Services will present an overview of the 2025 budget and review the corresponding budget for each department. The following discussion papers is also included. Ms. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a short presentation to go over the highlights of the budget and then it goes into the various departments. So I am open to questions during the presentation, or if you want to end, it's council.
What is your choice?
Whichever council prefers.
I think at the time that we're discussing it may be better instead of trying to come back. So we'll do it as it goes. Ms. Fox, go ahead. All I ask is when we're speaking on an item, if you could refer to the page number you're on. Do we have page number?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
So just to go over the schedule, so tonight it's to review the operating budget and go through that in detail. On Thursday night, we will continue on if we haven't made it all the way through the operating budget. We will also talk about the 2025 capital budget. And then our third meeting, which has just moved from the 3rd of February to the 19th, that's where we will continue anything that was required or still outstanding, as well as discussing the 10-year capital and the 3-year departmental schedules as well. The 10-year capital budget we will receive on Thursday. I was just reading on a couple of last costings to make sure it was as accurate as I can have with my estimate. For today, I just want to go over, again, just the overview of where we are at, what that would mean for our residential tax rate, some information about the revenues and expenses in the operating side of things, and then again, the departmental highlights. So in December, I had presented the budget book with a 5.9% tax increase. And then 2 days later, we all received a letter from the province that indicated that how they were going to be dealing with the aggregate classification would be limited to what the tax ratio could be. As background information on that, a residential property has a tax ratio of 1. And so we set our budget based on that, and then all of the other tax rates are a factor of that residential rate. In North Dumfries, because we are a lower tier, the region of Waterloo is actually responsible for setting the tax rates, and they are set for every municipality the same within the region of Waterloo. In the past, our commercial and industrial rates have been 1.95 times the residential tax rate. The province has indicated that they are transitioning the aggregate classification down to somewhere between 0.6 and 1.1. And so they have provided us with a transitional for 2025 number that we must use, and that is why the residential rate has changed. It hasn't changed the amount of dollars we are trying to raise by taxation. It is just shifted who is paying for that. And that will be all of the property tax classes, not just the residential.
One moment, please, Councillor Williams.
Is now a good time to bring up that letter?
Go ahead.
All right,
Blood pressure.
I was wondering if we, if staff, I was reading that letter and I was having a hard time quite understanding why the province was doing this, and I was just wondering if the staff had some better insight into that. I think I'm gonna start with that question.
Aren't you did the math? Ms. Bronze, please.
While I cannot speak to the rationale behind the province, what I will suggest is reading in it, in 2024, MPACT redid the reassessments for all aggregate properties within Ontario after certain court cases and appeals had been finalized. When that happened, the province had indicated that in 2024, they were going to take a lower educational rate on those properties as a way of phasing in the cost of the additional taxes. And it did, in fact, in their words, make them whole, because the new assessment with the reduction allowed for the education to collect the same amount. They had indicated that that was about $3 million. The letter has come out and said that they want to reduce the burden by 6 million. 3 will still be on the lower educational tax rate, and 3 million will come from the municipalities. Why they have chosen to do that, I cannot speculate, but that is what has happened behind this.
Can I just you have a history fit first? Okay. So why they think a $1 billion corporation should get a tax rate and put it on the people is beyond me. Go ahead, Ms. Ross.
I second that.
Yes.
So I was just, I am quite perplexed about this, because I was like, okay, so we then make it up somehow, now we're in a deficit. And so
We're
it's,
not in a deficit.
oh, sorry, we're in, well,
We're taxing people more.
we're taxing people more. But this is now on our residents rather than on these businesses who, as you correctly pointed out, are mostly multinational. They're not about to go bankrupt. They're not financially in a dire straits. I was wondering if there was here an opportunity for us to write a letter or something to the province and do something at least to raise these kind of questions, because it's not as though we're going to make it up with giant production increases, so then, more levies. I was just trying to game it all out, but I just think that we should at least say something in some way rather than just to let this go by, because I don't think it's fair to our taxpayers to just not even say anything.
So when we go to Roma, I was going to raise to the mic. The bear pit is where all the ministers sit up on a stage and we line up and we say what we want to say. So I was going to plan to get to the mic very first and state exactly this, that this is so wrong. That's one thing we can, but C.O. McNeely may have a more diplomatic answer.
Madam Mayor, in addition to speaking at the parapet, at the upcoming Roma conference, council tonight may wish to adopt a resolution because you are sitting as a council, so you can make decisions. Council may wish to entertain a resolution providing direction with the mayor submit a letter to the Minister of Finance expressing dismay over the, first of all, the late notification of the new subclass and its implications, and then give the minister an idea of what the implications are locally. And remembering that the full phase in has not occurred. And you know, that if this trend continues, you will likely see matching increases, transfer, the shift from the industrial classification to the residential as well as other industrial classifications over the next 2 to 3 years. And bring that to the attention of the minister and seek a response from the minister's office. So they have firsthand knowledge of what this looks like in the local level.
So if I may not move a motion as the chair. So I would ask my councillors to request that that motion be forward if they so wish.
I would like to raise that motion, and I think that it should also be sent not just to the finance minister, but I'm thinking we should probably look at a broader audience as well. Because I am sure that there's more municipalities who would also want to express their concerns. I'm sure the city of Ottawa is as delighted as we are, or not. So I don't know, I think there's more. And I was also thinking back at the Auditor General report that came out about last year about the various recommendations. And I don't understand how this really fits into the path forward that the Auditor General recommended. So there's just a bunch of things there, but I would like to definitely raise that motion.
So can I have a second for that motion, Council Roman? And also I would like, McMillan, would you help word that motion, please?
Real quick, happening it right now, and perhaps council later tonight would be able
Thank
to
you.
adopt it.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards? Councillor Austin?
To you to see it on McNeely. Who sets the rate that the township receives per ton of gravel that's removed from our township?
So Madam Mayor, through the council, once again, it's set by regulation published by the province of Ontario. And they have a global rate on royalty, and then they break it down between the region, the area municipality, as well as what goes to the regional corporation. That is used to rehabilitate abandoned properties as legacies. But it's all prescribed by the province of Ontario.
Thank you.
Ms. Watts, did you have anything else, Ms. Mills? Councillor Mills?
No, on this item, thank you.
No, now get you, you're a councillor, you're the staff. Go ahead, Ms. Watts.
So on this slide, you can just see that I left the 2024 percentages of where our tax dollars go. So we are, of course, only one part of the tax rate that our ratepayers pay. There's also the regional portion and the education portion. The other chart shows the weighted assessment. And again, that is factoring the actual, that is factoring in the actual assessment provided by MPAC times that tax ratio. Now, the tax ratios for 2025 have not officially been approved by the region. That typically happens in March, just before we set our tax rates. But based on everything that we anticipate, you can see where our funding comes from. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention again is to remind you that our tax assessment values are based on the values from 2016. And yes, that is a long time ago, but people need to remember that just because houses are selling at a particular market rate, that is not what you're paying taxes on. Just out of curiosity, I went and I looked at our new homes that are down in the southern portion of Ayr, and they were originally somewhere in that $800,000 to $900,000 price tag. We are actually only getting $450,000 to $500,000 of the new assessment on those. And then the townhouses in that area as well were priced to sell at about mid-600s. And we are getting about $365,000 in the assessment dollars in. Now, that is very fair and comparable to all of the existing houses that were around in 2016, so it is from that perspective a fair and equitable way. But when you see that houses are worth, selling for $1 million in air, that doesn't mean that that's what we get to assess taxes. The following slide is the updated information for the, what happens on the average assessed house in air. I have provided both the urban and then the rural rate. And you can see that with the proposed 6.3% increase, that works out to an extra $80.92 for that average homeowner. And that is annually. The slight higher amount for the urban factors in what's happening with air special rate. And again, if your house is not assessed at that average rate, then there's also the amount provided per 100,000, and you can multiply that for your own household budget. Some of the key things that are influencing the budget is, again, we were fortunate enough to have a 3.6% weighted average increase in our tax assessment overall, which is helpful in generating new tax dollars. There is still the continuous lag of when people have moved in and their home ownership. There is a delay from MPAC. They are working at an 85% within 1 year, and they have actually been slightly exceeding that for us because we keep reminding them that we have new houses. Can we have it, please? Can we have it, please? But in the meantime, there is still the delay from construction to assessment. The national inflation rate was in November was 1.9%. And I just wanted to remind council that really from January to May, it was fluctuating at that 2.9, 2.7, 2.8 range. And it was only in the later part of the year that it actually decreased down to that 1.9. There is hope that we are now within that Bank of Canada target range and it will continue to stay there, but there are way too many global factors on that for me to speculate as to what will happen exactly. Finally, our hydro utilities are our second largest expense overall, and they do continue to increase. We are stuck with the same increases that all the households are. Some of ours are a little higher because once we're running the ice plant, we're considered a large consumption, so our rates go up. But at the end of it, it does provide most valuable services. Based on the 2025 tax rates, North Dumfries is right at near the bottom. Bush Lynch is actually less than us now, but within the region of Waterloo, we do have the lowest total tax rate for our residents. This is something we are aware of and we are always considering. Obviously, this does not factor in what anyone else's budget process has been for 2025. We have that 3.4% or 3.3% increase. My understanding is Woolwich was projecting a 10%. City of Kitchener was 3.9. Waterloo, I think, was closer to 6. I won't even mention Lowmont. And so there's varying ranges, and that will impact what the numbers are. Again, I do caution whenever we're using percentages, the smaller your number means that when you say a percentage, it's still a small number. Sometimes it is best to go back and look at that. What is that dollar increase? With this, you can also compare what your own assessment would be if your house happened to be located in one of the others to get an understanding of where it would be as well. Apologize, the wording on this ended up being a little smaller than I expected.
One moment, please, Christina. Council Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The chart you just showed us, does that reflect the 50% increase for Wilmot?
No, she said-
Did they not approve that or?
No, it's still, they're still working their way through their budgetary cycle, so I have no idea what they're finally going to approve. These are the rates from 2024 because those, everybody had approved, everyone in various reflection of where they are for their rates.
Okay, so those are all last year's numbers, not current.
As of December 31st, 2020.
Thank you.
This slide shows you what the sources of our revenues are. The largest portion of our revenues is, of course, our taxation dollars. Also within that, we do charge user fees. The other category is things such as the interest we earn on our bank accounts, the investment income we get from our Greenbridge ownership, and things of that nature. And then again, the grants are really only the operating grants. The majority of our grants have traditionally been capital, so that's not included in this. The next graph just shows you again where we spend our funding. The corporate services has increased slightly because that is where we have put the cost of renting the new town hall rather than allocating it out by department. It is just sitting in the we continue to spend the majority of our funds in the leisure and the public works departments, which is where the majority of our facilities and operations are. This year's budget proposes transferring just over $3 million to reserves. 1.3 million of that would be funded through the tax levy. Again, we are very fortunate in this township that we have sources that we have traditionally put aside for capital. The aggregate fee did increase for 2024. So that those fundings have been have transferred, and in our 2025 budget reflects a slight increase as we expect that to continue. The investment in Greenbridge, again, we have traditionally put that aside into reserves to fund future capital. Finally, my report tonight had a few updates to the operating budget. We received again late notification in December that we had been awarded a grant through the Waterloo Region Community Foundation. We have proposed how we, some early thoughts on how to spend that, and we'll put it into, it does not impact the levy as the money will come in and then spend funds in the next year's budget. We also had two former sports organizations who unfortunately have no longer continued on, a tennis club and the Ringette Association, and they have donated their remaining funds to us to be used to develop future sports in those fields. And finally, the Mitchell Drain near Cedar Creek Road, not to be confused with the Mitchell Drain we were talking about in South Air. Apparently there's a lot of Mitchell Drains. But this one is, we have finally received the bill for the benefiting landowners as the neighboring municipality. It is up to us to administer that and charge that back to the benefiting landowners. So this is again no impact on the actual tax, but it is a in and out from a revenue and expense perspective. I will be now moving on to the departmental highlights. The first department that I wish to draw your attention to is the council. And you can follow along on page 14 of the binder if you so choose. And what I wanted to highlight here is that traditionally, we have had a policy of the mayor attending 2 conferences, and they've typically been Roma and AMO, and other councillors have been able to go to 1. We have actually had the request that 2 councillors wish to go to Roma, and my understanding, because I believe it opens up tomorrow, is that 3 councillors want to go to AMO. So this is in fact an increase over what I was anticipating when I put the budget out in December. So if council is approving of that and finds value in that, then I would recommend that council maybe wants to consider a slight increase in its budget line to account for that.
Councilors, thoughts on this? Should we put all council members can attend to conferences? Council Tilly.
As I've spoken with the rest of the council, I would see a lot of value in the conferences, especially the opportunity to meet with the MVPs and to try and impress upon them what we need for a township to just do that and not to be an unknown entity to that. And I mean, the mayor does a fantastic job of representing us, but seeing the amount of other councilors and mayors that are attending, other communities do the same investment. And so I see it as an opportunity to do that, and a chance to make a difference. And that relationships, I see it happen. What Mayor Foxton does when she does that. And I have to say it must make it must have an effect on the overall, from what I can see, when we do get those opportunities that because of the relationships you develop. So that's my opinion on that. And that's why I like to go to both of those events to try and start creating the same relationships that the mayor has done over the years.
Yeah, North Dumfries is well known. Now, there is 3 conferences, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I don't go to that, but none of the MPs go to it. So it's just, so you don't have that connection. Like when we go to this one, we already have, how many delegations? We have 9.
So Madam Mayor, we put in for 9 and we received confirmation for 7.
Thank you. And we got another one today, so we don't know what the rest two as well. And that's important because they know us then, and we can go there and spend time and talk to them and say exactly what we need and why. But I think it's a great experience for all of us. Councilor Rowland.
Madam Mayor, so I do agree with this because I've never attended Roma, but with AMO, with the delegations in particular, when you walk in with 3 or 4 councilors, it's much more impressive to the MPs. But the MPs, they realize that you're serious about the issue. If you walk in just by yourself, they kind of dismiss you a little easier. But when you have a little bit more strength in numbers, I think it certainly plays well. And the other thing that's good is meeting all the other municipalities, like, working with Wilmot, Woolwich, Brant County, all the different surrounding councilors are there, mayors are there. So I think it's a good opportunity to network, an opportunity to learn a lot of things. So I'm totally in favor of the conferences. As for 2 conferences, I haven't been able to attend both in the years. It's a lot to ask, but council is valuable. I'm in favor of it.
What are your thoughts? Do we go for 2 for all? Because even if you don't use it, Councilor Scott has.
That's good too. So I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay, to change the policy to allow for councilors to attend 2 events, and I guess we have to get direction to staff to adjust the budget for that.
Or inquire what would the impact? Is there a second to that motion? Councilor Williams. Ms. Brooks, what would be the impact?
Madam Mayor, I have an estimate that attending the conference at AMO is approximately $1,500 per counselor. So we would probably want to add $3,000 to the budget. That would be my recommendation.
So we'll have a staff drop the motion.
Bring his opinion.
Right. Getting back to Ms. Williams' motion, should we also share this motion with Tottenham? Is that what you just said? Yeah, I would also like this to be shared with Tatman, please. Ms. Bronx, while all these motions are flying around, you want to carry on?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
The rest of the council budget is fairly consistent with the previous years, as is the election one, so I don't have anything else to highlight there. Within the corporate services budget, again, as previously stated, this is where we see the cost for the town hall lease. We do propose to fully fund the lease through the use of the Grand Bridge Energy investment income that we have acquired. So again, that actually does not impact the tax levy. But that is one of the expenses in the operation of that line.
And just to stop you there, that does not take all of Grand Bridge Energy. A portion of Grand Bridge Energy reserve will offset the cost of the lease for the township corporate offices. Thank you.
That is absolutely correct, Madam Mayor. It is not. The other item that I just always like to highlight at this time is the 2025 total staff budget has $37,500 for community grant. As always, our requests have exceeded that. We're still finalizing the number because still have a lot of people just say waive all the fees without really breaking it down. So we are working on actual final numbers, but it has come in again for 60,000. We will summarize that. We will take the information to the working group, and then, as always, the plan is for them to meet in February with us to come back to council in March with recommendations for awarding those funds once the budget has.
Councilor Williams.
I was just wondering, with the community grants, are we increasing that on a regular basis, the amount of money we put aside for community grants, or is this a stable kind of number?
It has a minor increase to it for this year. Last year we did increase it significantly because 3 of our organizations who we always support were pulled out of the grants and shown as independent budget lines, and we've left those in the budget again this year. But we are only recommending a modest increase to the community grants based on all of the other demands for our tax funds.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions on corporate services, we will move along to the fire department on page 20.
Councilor Williams.
Not sure exactly when to bring it up, but I think probably corporate services might be the best place. So I was just wondering, where do we cover, I think is it under corporate services that we cover the legal fees that will be necessary for us for the OLT hearings that are coming up, and is that under corporate?
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through Councilor Williams, no, matters such as future OLT or process OLT hearings is actually funded and shown in the legal expense line, as well as the hearings line in the development services and planning operating budget. The legal line that you see in administration is general legal services, and we have a legal line in each department. The amounts vary depending upon each department, but specific to the OLT hearings, it's in the planning operating budget.
Thank you for that explanation. I was just wondering because I saw there was this giant increase there for 2024 compared to the budget for legal expenses. So I thought that was perhaps where we had done the OLT from this past year.
My apologies. I believe that the actual has the rest of our insurance premium, and that is a misallocation. I apologize for the confusion in that. We did not spend $121,000 on legal fees this year. I am so sorry for that confusion. I will have that corrected.
So maybe these motions last. Maybe these last.
Moving on to the fire department, if I may. The fire department, has continued to have successful recruitment, which is always excellent for our volunteers. Excuse me, we have added a few new lines of revenue. Now, we are not anticipating a huge amount from these lines, but we have introduced a fee in December in the update to the fees and charges bylaw that would actually charge, a fee for our burn permits. And there is also a fee for the recovery of supplies used at emergency scenes when they are not North Dumfries residents, and it will charge. And currently, my apologies, also our North Dumfries. So for example, if there is an EV battery fire, we have now purchased that EV blanket to assist with the
Extinguishing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And those are a one time and done, so then it would be the cost to replace that blanket.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, this recovery is for unique specialized services. It's not your generic response to a fire suppression or a fire incident. The use of the EV blanket as an example. Purchase account is paid $3,500, but specific to that task, and as the treasurer is quite correctly identified, it's a one and done. So once we use that blanket, it cannot be reused again, and so that would be passed on to that incident, and either the insurance company, and we would replenish the inventory for our frontline apparatus of a replacement EV fire blanket to be available the next time a similar response and deploy of resources is required.
So it's a wash. It's used.
It's a replacement of that specific piece of equipment or device.
Thank you. Here we are, Ms. Ross.
Also on page 21, you will see our animal control costs. Those are very similar, but I mentioned it now, just to put the plug in that we are selling the dog tags right now, and the early fee deadline is February 15th. So if you haven't bought your dog tags, the cards went out late due to the Canada Post strike, but we are accepting dog tags right now.
Are we advertising that in the area, so?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
The following department is the building department. Now, it is a self-funded department line, so we have not highlighted anything of significance in it. But we are open to taking questions if there are any on page 23's budget lines.
Seeing none, here we are.
The following two pages are the other protection services, which are the bylaw and department and the crossing guards. Again, very similar to previous years with some modest increases as relates to wages and there's a new computer purchase. Starting on page 26 is where we have the engineering and public works department. Again, it is broken down into many of the very functions that the department undertakes. We are continuing to focus on roads and road safety. We have made a lot of operational changes to improve how we are responding to some of the concerns. Again, within this department, we continue to see the cost of vehicle repairs is one of those items that is exceeding that inflationary increase. So again, that is, we've updated those budget lines to reflect what we're finding in market pricing. And as our vehicles get older, the older vehicles have unfortunately more. Are there any questions?
I don't see any, carry on.
If you move to page 34, that is where the leisure and community service departments are. One new item to highlight within the leisure and community services is the partnership with the Langs facility to improve our youth programming. That is a new budgetary line. We have also had some small enhancements to our neighborhood events. They have increased the budget to $550,000. Again, we have found the uptake for those continues to grow and they seem to be popular, which is great. We have made some changes to the more township-wide events, but they are minor in nature. And within this department, what continues to be our main expense lines are our property maintenance, the refrigeration costs and utilities for the North Dumfries Community Complex and the Air Community Center as expected. Which,
Councillor Wilms.
So I know that over this past season, ice season, we've experienced some issues with the ACC. How is that impacting our budget and planning since this facility, you know, it seems to be rather tired and sensitive?
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Wilms, that is why when we get to capital, you will see that we have some proposed capital upgrades to the facility itself, including the electrical panels. In terms of impact on the 2024 revenues and 2025, I will say that Director Winter has done a great job trying to minimize how much downtime we have had and has successfully only lost a couple of days of ice time, which was a much more positive outcome than the original one. Now, for those who lost the ice time, terrible, it's terrible. But with the compressors shut down, we have not actually lost the ice, which would have put us at a 10-day delay, which is what our fears were. So we didn't do that. So thankfully, it's but that is why you're going to see in the capital budget that we do need to make some much needed necessary investments in that.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? No. Go Councillor Wilms.
I just had a question because we skipped environmental services.
Go ahead.
Page 3.
Okay.
So my question was really, it came out at the bottom there where we talked about waste collection and garbage tag sales. And I was just wondering, I know at some meetings we were talking about, there's a lot of garbage dumping that happens, especially on our rural roads at the end of the month. I was just wondering, where is that impact felt in our budget?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Wilms. The environmental service line is strictly speaking us selling of the tags on behalf of the region. So the net is our administration fee. The cost of the actual roadside debris is actually in the public works department. And it is on page
30. On page 30.
Okay.
In the middle of page 30, you can see there's roads, debris pickup, and then it's broken into wages, overtime. And in 2024, our cost between regular wages and overtime was almost $16,000 to undertake the cleanup of debris, largely household, some of the big contractor that was illegally disposed of on edges of township road lines. This is not going on in private property. It's exclusively illegal dumping along our roadsides.
Councillor Tilly.
Mayor, through you to the CAO, does that include windfall from trees? I don't know, that's a different line.
This is exclusively illegal dumping and garbage or contractors debris on our roads or on our road balances across all 4 roads.
Good. Carry on, Ms. Fox.
The last department that you will find on page 3738 is the planning services department. We have significant changes in our planning responsibilities as of January 1st. We have done our best to estimate what that would mean in terms of fees and revenues for them. A little bit of a guesswork because it is, of course, the first year we're having those planning responsibilities. We have increased a few lines within the department to fund some additional training or other information to make sure we're current and up to date with all of our planning responsibilities. But they have been known and staff continue to monitor how that is impacted.
Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor, through you to the treasurer. The regional Waterloo is no longer involved in planning. So I'm just wondering, did the province reshape the amount that the region takes from the tax levy? Or from the tax, how much we get? Is it now, we're now being paid from the taxes for planning, additional planning I'm taking on? Or is the region still taking the same amount as always? And now we have to fund the difference?
Mayor, maybe I'll
Go ahead,
speak to this
Sarah.
issue. Province did not impose a regulation on the region or the upper tiers within the greater Toronto Hamilton area, prescribing, I'll call it the gap, through the reduction of that service at the upper tier and the transfers of those responsibilities to the area municipalities in each of the 6 regions. Locally, in the case of Waterloo region, I'm not aware of any specific savings that was passed on by the region to the 7 areas.
Councilor Holmes and Councilwoman.
So I had the very same question. I was wondering if it'd be possible to, like, looking at this report, I was trying to look at what we did in 2024 and see what the differences was and how much more we are now having to spend. Because I thought that would be a good number to have. Because I don't think that taxpayers should be paying double for the same service. And then if we have that number, and then we can definitely have something that we can then go to the region or the province to and say, look, this is now an increase. Based on this change legislation, and it's not as though that's not like how things should work. But yeah, I couldn't quite figure out that number from the information.
CEO McMillan, just before that, the mayor said several times, talking to not only the premier, but the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, dealing with this, stating that the funding model has to come down to the municipalities. He agreed with us, but it's not implemented. CEO McMillan.
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Wells, probably the largest cost center that has been picked up year over year in the budget is the annualization of the wage line, because we did expand our roster in the number of professional planners that we have on our staff to handle the anticipated and expanded workload, as well as the complexity of those files. Generally speaking, if you take a look at the wage line on page 38, and look at the wage lines, look at the benefits because they're intimately linked. The year over year increase in rounded numbers is approximately $75,000 between wages and the benefits. That portion of that is attributed to some of the cost of living and adjustment that was given to all non-union staff. So that would have been the existing complement. And the difference or the gap would be the annualization of that additional wage that was partially funded in the 24 budget. So I would suggest to you in rounded numbers, you're probably looking at a cost of about 50,000 as a net year over year increase attributed to Fund 3 and the expanded planning responsibilities occurred by the municipality. Ms. Brock's indicated, we did increase our revenue stream to account for more added responsibilities, but because we have no track record in terms of what that translates into tracked hours, it was an estimate, and when we presented the fees and charges by on council in December 2024. For calendar year 2025, we indicated that we would be tracking a lot. And based on truth activity, we may be coming back to council for the further adjustment to these charges based on some of that early experience.
Councillor Terry.
Just because we have access to you and you're on regional council, is there any conversation about the differences of what's gonna happen now the plan has been removed from the region?
You mean in our 15-hour meetings where it's quite contentious?
That's the one.
Yes, yes. The region is reluctant to relinquish anything. Would that be a fair, that wasn't a very diplomatic thing to say, was it, say on again? And it is a struggle, but we will pursue, we carry forward, and don't forget with planning pays for planning, basically, so that they do charge things and costs and that to offset this. So it still is a benefit for us. It prevents a duplication of services at the regional level. It hopefully will prevent delays. There are some things that the other townships have been waiting for 3-4 years that the region haven't moved forward with, and they dealt with 3-4 years ago. And so it is, but yeah, it's carrying on. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to comment that I do agree that having planning in-house is beneficial to us. It's fantastic. But this move by the province basically costs us about 1% of our tax increase. Just so everyone understands. Otherwise, we could be a little bit lower, but this move means we have to, is it about 1% or maybe a bit more?
See how we go?
So Madam Mayor, rounded numbers, 1% translates into about $75,000. So, excuse me, if approximate median annualization of the wage and benefits in the budget of 2025, 50,000, you're looking at approximately 0.25% in terms of 2.9%. That's factored in as the year-over-year operating application. Overall tax rate, but year-over-year operating, we were carrying allowance of 2.9%, approximately 0.5 of that would be reflective of the expanded responsibilities attributed to plan.
Ms. Fox?
That brings us to the end of the highlights I had for the operating budget departmental ones. The other thing that, my final slide here is just talking about, there is a discussion paper that, council can, review from regarding the, doctors for Cambridge. I'm gonna say that wrong, my apologies.
You're right, no, it's doctors for, yeah.
I would also like to mention that, not only do they submit that information to council to be part of their the budget deliberations, but they also submitted a, community grant application in case we wanted to go that road, but, I just thought I'd bring that to your attention as well. I'm completely open for other questions on the operating, or if there's any other discussions on the budget that we wanted to undertake.
I have a few things if council will permit. The first one is these people have been patiently waiting. Is it the wish of this council to increase the fees and take away the discount for our youth sports players? It is not the wish of this council, so it will not be happening. So I wanted you to know that, so you don't have to hang on. I know this is riveting. I know you want to stay in the budget, but I will let you go. The other one I have, Ms. Rouse, is the potential increase in tax arrears. How do we pay those tax arrears? Because as most people know, if the tax arrears, it comes out of our pocket. It still has to go to the region.
Yes,
And
Madam Mayor, that is correct. Whether or not we collect from individual homeowners, we are on a set schedule for paying the school board and the regional government their share of what we should have collected. We have been trying different methods internally to collect on taxes arrears, and we have started the process for actually pursuing tax sales. Now, a tax sale is a year-long process to encourage people to get fully caught up on their amounts outstanding. And if at the end of that entire time, then we are allowed to sell the property and recoup our taxes. Now, that is again, a long process. It's not my intention to want to sell any of those items, but starting the process often encourages people to become compliant. Starting last Monday, I had my new property tax collector start with us, and she is very familiar in her work history with that process as well. So we will be starting that process.
See your feeling.
Madam Mayor, I think it's also important to know, the region who supplies potable water to Bear, portions of Branchdon, portions of Roseville are also finding a number of delinquent accounts for people not paying their monthly or bi-monthly water bill. And so the region, in accordance with legislation, converts it to your municipality. And after they provided notice of arrears, and to our property tax bill as an arrear.
So what, see, okay, Ms. Fox.
Just further to that, to fund it all, that is also why we hold a working fund reserve. The goal is to keep that reserve balance very similar or exceeding our taxes arrears, because that allows us to actually have the cash to pay out without actually having to incur debt or further costs as well. So that is why typically I have recommended we have increased that over the past few years, just because we have seen those costs going up.
How do we stand now? Because I know there's been several, it's not just water, it's not just taxes, it's hydro, it's everything. So how do we stand now with that?
It is, the last time I checked, it was fairly close. Don't have my final numbers calculated, so I'll have to get back to you on Thursday night with where exactly we stand on that one. But it has always been my intention to ensure that that reserve is slightly above. But part of the year-end close process, but I didn't actually pay attention to the final balance. My apologies.
Okay, thank you then. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Councilor Williams.
So I have two questions. One, to circle back to our previous discussion about the planning. Is this something that we should be bringing up in the delegation, in any delegations on Roma?
The mayors have just again reached out not only to the premier, but to Minister Calandra, and we're meeting with them hopefully in the near future. So the mayors, all 6 mayors, are on team one.
Thank you. The next question I have is that, I think I asked this almost every year, but I'm gonna ask it again. Is, so do we, right now, we don't only have a reserve set aside for our OLT hearings from the gravel, and so we kind of deal with it one-on-one. Knowing that we're looking at least 2 in the next year and a bit. Would it be a good idea to start setting aside some funds? Because especially if we do decide to go through the full hearing, there's quite a bit of expenses, not just with lawyers, but also with experts and maybe some additional studies that we would want to do, and et cetera. So I was not seeing that really reflected in the budget, and I just want to ask if this is something that we should be putting together.
So, Madam Mayor, in 2024, council actually did establish a reserve account for administrative tribunals. And we're just going to check the account balance as of December 31st.
So we did actually top it up at the last council meeting in December, so it is at approximately 100,000.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, so are we ready to move on to the grant process? Is that the wish? What is your wish?
So, Madam Mayor, are there any questions related to any of the department budgets or the background drivers of the form draft budget?
I just asked that, but I'll ask it again, Councilor Timmons.
We'll get to the end just in case the answer is answered while we went. My questions revolve, what I'm noticing in the roads, a lot of decreases in 2025 versus 2024. And I would just like to get some clarification as to why the budget would reduce on road work in 2025. I know we said that we were gonna not do some more work, but I mean, to keep the budget, is that the reason why?
Who would like to handle this? Sierra McNeely? Go ahead, Sierra McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, not knowing exactly what line councilors identifying.
He'll tell you right now. Go ahead, Councilor Kelly.
So I'm actually, as in a 2,000-foot overview, I'm looking at page 9 on the total public works, and you can see the total roads budget there.
But there's probably over 150 different land accounts, so it's the summation. Adds and deletes. Some of it is efficiencies of bringing certain services in-house and not having to have them as contracted services. Some of them they were special initiatives that we tried to undertake in 2024, and we were not necessary to repeat in subsequent years. Some of it is your energy efficiency components that we've undertaken as it relates to either heating or electricity demands in our PW facilities. Some of it was because certain vehicles have been retired and they were at the end of their life and they had experienced quite significant repairs in their latter years. And because they've been changed out with a newer vehicle, the repair costs are somewhat more, because in some cases are covered by warranty, or just because the vehicle hasn't received the wear and tear. Some other areas, where I've seen some significant drops. Culverts and bridges, materials and supplies, we reduce as an example of a factor of 5,000, so we dropped it from 20,000 down to 15,000. It's because when we look at our history over multiple years, we haven't fully expended those accounts, so we troop them more to what we would do in a typical year based on normal activity and related activities.
So I didn't want to make this a painful.
No, but I mean, I
process
think
for
it's
you. I just
important.
wanted to, yeah.
We did find some savings also by taking certain things in-house after we replaced to snowplow. So for example, council in 2024, not only did we purchase the 1-ton hoist truck, but we also had it fitted up with a plow and a sander unit. So those stub roads, like Old Piper Street, Tannery, and a small portion of Beaky road that were historically contracted out, we brought in internally and are now using our own equipment and personnel. That alone was a $17,000 reduction by bringing it in-house. So, it's not one line, it's over multiple accounts. But in some cases, it's reflective of either better understanding of our costs.
Yeah.
It is bringing certain services in-house and not having to pay external contractor or contractors for that work. And in other cases, it was efficiencies that we brought in through the 23-24 time period that are resulting in some savings in the public works or engineering portfolio. We do have an overall increase in our spend for that, but it's a better true thing in terms of how those numbers are realized.
See, Councilor Tilly.
So in that same regard, looking on summary page 9, and the one that caught my attention as a concern, but hopefully it's because something else was improved. Looking at the total recreation programs and events, again, it was a $14,000 reduction, 24 versus 25. Wondering if I get some clarity on what happened there.
Well, Madam Mayor, partially that was the grant allocation given to the year 200 celebration. council funded $15,000 each year for the 22, 23, and 24 fiscal years. So part of that is, that program is now sunset. So that $15,000 is no longer being spent. We did reduce the summer movie night. We dropped one of the 2 nights. And so there was a savings there of $2,700. That would be part of that expense line. We did not find that we were getting significant turnout when we had the 2 events, so we brought it down to 1. So those are some examples of year-over-year cost reductions within that broader category.
I realized that we were trying to improve the services offered for Legion. That's a good explanation, as long as there's still something going towards that. So, and I'm sure it'd be substituted with something if the director decided there's something good to happen. But,
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Williams. She wasn't sure.
So we agreed back in August to increase, to set aside, was it 3% for the upcoming capital things that we want to do, such as the twin pad and other stuff. Given that we're now looking at 6.4%, does 3% still make sense? That's just a question that I have, or if we reduced it, we'll probably be increasing the debt later on. I don't know. So this is just something that I don't have a clear answer on. I'm just wondering if there's any feedback.
CEO McNally.
So Madam Mayor and Councilor Williams, you are correct. Back in August, council actually had a 6.4, 6.5% increase, but a portion of that was attributed to the OMPF funding, which decreased, which did not materialize. So staff unilaterally took that, then our cap was 5.9%, which is what we brought forward as the draft budget in December. Going back to August and then reflected in the draft that was tabled in December. It was 2.9% year over year for operating, which we achieved. And then 3% was transferred to capital reserve accounts to deal with the growing demands and the increase in pricing for certain projects that we had seen in the 10-year capital forecast. And so what staff asked for in August and council adopted as a guardrail and then reflected in the December draft budget was 1.25% increase transfers to infrastructure reserve, 0.75% increase to facilities reserves, and 1% for generically across the board for all the other types of reserves that were not captured under infrastructure or facilities. The sum of that is 3%. So that's what's in your draft 2025 budget based on what was discussed in August and then carried forward in the draft document. So the 3% increase in transfers to capital reserves was largely motivated, as I indicated, to fund the 10-year capital forecast. And coming out of the pandemic, we witnessed some significant increases in certain categories from a capital purchase delivery perspective. Rolling stock is a prime example. We witnessed a significant increase, not only in delay in terms of time to purchase units and have them delivered to us, but also the base cost to purchase it. That has been somewhat aggravated also because of a huge differential between the Canadian and American dollar. A large portion of our rolling stock is actually manufactured in the United States, although it's purchased through local Canadian distributors. But that dollar differential is factored into those bid prices. As it relates to construction, we look at buildings and think of some of the buildings that we've either got as new buildings and or major renovations, rehabilitations to existing building stock. We've witnessed a significant increase in certain materials as well as labor associated with those projects. Generally speaking, it's leveled off a little bit compared to what we witnessed 2 years ago. But we're still looking at factors of between 5% and 7% for building construction. On infrastructure, to think of paving and the like, assuming that petroleum-based product stays relatively constant. We're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5% indexation. Partly because of instability of pricing on petroleum, but the labor component, as well as their costs associated with purchasing roads. So to fund balance the 10-year forecast, staff recommended a 3% increase over previous years in terms of transfers of capital reserves. So generally speaking, you're looking at 1% contributes to $75,000 new dollars in round numbers. So, you're looking at approximately $225,000 increase in your year-over-year transfers to those various reserve accounts in the draft budget. And with that, we will be able to move closer to funding our commitments in the 10-year capital forecast. The transfers are not necessarily being utilized to fund the 2025 capital budget. We have sufficient reserves. Other than potential debt financing, if the Twin Pad project will move forward.
Councillor Bowman.
Madam Mayor, just a comment, what the CEO said. You go back in time 9, 10 years ago, this township had basically no reserves. There was no plan to fund our capital forecast. So we've been diligent over the last 9 years in putting away reserves, building up the reserves, not spending money frivolously. So that way we could not end in a situation like some adjacent municipalities are in right now. So I think I'm pretty proud of the staff and the job they've done, the reserves that we built up. So I think this is a pretty important thing we should continue on this course.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm ready to move on then, and I believe we're at number. Ms. Proctor, you're done, so we can go with motions.
I would suggest, Madam Mayor, that you make those motions that we had discussed as part of our discussion before we moved on to a different agenda item.
Okay, there's the two of them. Councillor Williams, do you want to read yours first, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Waterman. The mayor be directed to prepare and submit correspondence to the top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario, TAMO, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, Minister of Finance, the Minister of Natural Resources, and the Premier of Ontario, raising concerns and outlining implications associated with the implementation of the new property tax subclass that was estimated in December 2024 by the province. That was established in December 2024 by the province related to the aggregate sector. And the area municipalities of Waterloo Region, the region of Waterloo, and MPP Brian Riddell be copied on the correspondence.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councillor Tilly, yours please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Williams, that council direct staff to amend the current council conference policy from 2 conferences for the mayor and 1 conference for each member of council to allow each member of council to attend 2 conferences.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask for a friendly amendment to that?
Go ahead.
And if the spending increase for that budget line, the increase by $3,000.
Okay, could you change that, please? Amanda, and we'll get to that again, Councillor Tilly. We'll discuss it. Thank you. Mhm. Please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Wilms, that council direct staff to amend the current council conference policy from 2 conference for the mayor and 1 conference for each member of council to allow each member of council to attend 2 conferences and the spending be increased by $3,000.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And then next is, the operating capital, this one's, you want to, so we're on, financial report 01/2025. And the items for the draft budget, it's the long one here. I think the one that we want to discuss before we get into it, or allow it up to this round, but, is the, doctor allocation. Doctors for Cambridge allocation, the first one is to give them 7,500. Which is what they requested, or specifically give them a specific amount. Or we can have it come from the community grants. Or staff can, following service in kind, the support of Joseph recruitment campaign in lieu of a formal grant, so that would be gifting something that we give to the doctors as they come. I sat on Doctors for Cambridge years ago. And, it voted 99% because, we didn't mean, we had done a very successful job. And while, Dorothy, Donna Gravel has stayed on and been doing it since, and now she wants to revitalize it. I think there is a need. But exactly what you could look at, Woolwich gave. Woolwich had a population of 30,000, gave 2,900 and something, and they said they would donate 50 gift bags at a price of $50 per basket. I believe that was it. I'm really guessing here because it's shouldn't be my thing here. You have it seen on it now?
Page 18 of the council agenda package that in there.
Page 18 there.
So it's page 18, and so as part of the preparation of discussion paper 1, which was attached to Fin Report 01/2025. We identified, excuse me, on page 18, what the area municipalities across Waterloo region are doing as it relates to contributing toward physician recruitment. Now, Cambridge is the only one that actually today makes a contribution to Cambridge, Doctors for Cambridge. Our counterparts in Woolwich and the city of Waterloo make contributions to the Greater Kitchener and Waterloo Chamber of Commerce for their recruitment. So, as you can see from the table, Woolwich provides a grant of $2,500, as well as $50 per gift basket. Typically, there are 25 gifts baskets that are handed out at the time of the annual tour. Cambridge provides a contribution of $60,000, and each of Kitchener and the city of Waterloo provide $30,000 each. The request from Cambridge for Doctors for Cambridge, sorry, is $7,500 specific to our doctors.
Thoughts, councillors? Councillor Wills.
Do we have any idea of how many people actually have doctors in Cambridge versus they're using Langs or, I don't know, doctors in other areas of Waterloo region or Brant?
Councillor Ashman.
I feel like we have to be involved in the program. I think all the region has to be involved in the program. if you go to a hospital from there, chances are you're going to Cambridge Memorial. If you have a child born, chances are it's Cambridge Memorial. It depends. You could go up St. Mary's, you could go to Grand River, but chances are you're going to Cambridge. Our students go to school in Cambridge, so if anything happens, they'll be going to Cambridge Memorial. So I think that we need to be involved in it. If the program again is working, not just another avenue to spend money. We need to know and make sure that this program is working and worthwhile, but I think we should be part of it.
So the question is, how much? You're asking for $7,500.
$7,500.
That's what you're suggesting. How do we get that $7,500? Ms. Fox?
So Madam Mayor, if council would just to that, then it would be one part of tax levy, you would raise it from property taxes, it would be a new budget line in your current draft budget. And you would ask your resolution carried by the majority to that and establish a new budget line for the Doctors for Cambridge recruitment campaign and the allowance being $7,500.
Now, Councillor Austin, you're right in a lot of ways, but also a lot of members here go to Brantford. And that was when we first started to get involved with the hospital. That was the biggest complaint from a lot of citizens, was that they don't use Cambridge. And so we have to balance that very carefully. Also, I was looking at the Woolwich Fund because they're 3 times our size, almost, they're not quite, maybe a little more than double our size. More than double our size. And I thought if we were gonna look at any amount, we would consider looking at that amount. So, like, are we really looking at 2,000? Or do we want to go through the grant process? Your thoughts, grant process? Councillor Austin.
Again, if we can raise the money without putting it on an exact tax burden, or if there's a reserve that we may be able to use, and a donation reserve, or if we can raise the money through the granting process or whatever, then yeah, sure.
No, granting process means that they apply for a grant through the township, just like the other grants, but they've already missed the deadline. No, they did put in for it, that's right, they did put in for it in time.
Yeah.
So we can go through the granting process.
Yeah.
Is that a more reasonable?
That way
Councillor Ross.
it's through the avenue of the grant.
Yes, Councillor Ross.
So yeah, they can go through the granting process, but there is a line here that says we would also vote how much we would provide for them right here, right? Because the third option is council direct staff to draw X amount of dollars from the community grants account line to be allocated towards that. So we would make that decision on behalf of the grant committee if we go with option 3. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Am I
We
not?
can revise and add it to anything. So we can say it has to go through the granting process. CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, option 3, remember the working group only makes recommendations to council. And that's typically done in March. The council reviews the recommendations from the working group and for the most part has endorsed what's been recommended by the committee. So you could today establish an amount and let's, for lack of a term, subtract it from the $37,000. Overall spend is being set aside for community grants. And the working group would be communicated that amount. So they would assess the other applications in the context of that revised spending allowance. Or council could frame an option 6, which is not listed here, which is just let the committee decide whether or not it's worthy of a grant, and it may come back to council for consideration based on a recommendation from the grant committee.
Thoughts and wishes, councillors, you want it, the committee to handle it? Okay, I thought committee handle it, Okay, so that will be what it is. Are you writing it down, Councilor Lawrence? All right, Ashley, can you type it up, please? Please. Councilor Austin.
Sorry, I'm just gonna step up for one quick second.
Of course.
Thank you.
But,
Well, the state service that is doing that, I just wanted to highlight the fact that there were, 3 additional capital projects included in that resolution
yes,
that have been added. Just for the record, just adding them there, that they are, the OSIM report and the, legal services around the intersection of Elliott and Nicholas are carried forward projects, and the track was previously approved from council.
yes, thank you. Yeah, you did a great job. I'm proud of you guys. What do you think of the amount already, sometimes? If we do it, no, we decided it's going to be again. Okay.
Madam Mayor, typically the grant committee working group meets in February, and recommendation of the council agenda in March.
Yes. Perfect timing, Councilor Austin. Perfect timing.
Okay.
Councilor Rowland, will you check to you, please?
Made by myself, second by Council Lauren, that in report number 01-2025 be received. And the draft 2025 budget operating capital be amended to add the following information. One, $5,000 grant review from the Waterloo Region Community Foundation be added to the 2025 operating budget, with offsetting expenditures to be determined at the January 27th, 2025 council meeting upon receipt of a staff report on this matter. Two, $4,250 transfer from Rainier donation reserve to be added to the 2025 operating budget, with an offsetting expense of $4,250 for Emergency Escape Program workshops costs. Three, $4,315.45 transfer from Tennis Club donation reserve to be added to the 2025 operating budget, with an offsetting expense of $4,314.45 for tennis workshop and instructor costs. Four, $96,685.33 added to the operating expenses for costs attributed to the Mitchell Cedar Creek road area municipal drain, with offsetting revenues from benefiting landowners. Five, OSIM report project be added to the 2025 capital budget as an in progress item with a budget of $28,350 funded by transfers from gravel reserves. Six, $219,550 upon the purchase of a cab and chassis, includes net HST upon delivery to the assembly manufacturer to facilitate the 2026 purchase of a tandem axle plow and dump truck be added to the capital budget for 2025 and the offsetting transfer from PW rolling stock reserve. 7, $15,000 for professional services be added to the 2025 capital budget as a carry forward item related to the completion of the Ingle Street and Elliott intersection improvement project to finalize all legal documentation, land transfers, and surveyor work. This cost to be funded via transfer from gravel reserve. And that council refer the matter submitted by Doctors for Cambridge recruitment campaign for $7,500 to the Community Grants Working Group for review and assessment.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next, we have the correspondence from County Tanner, Council Roman, please.
Moved by myself, by Council Williams, that the following public correspondence be received for information. Correspondence received from Connie Tanner regarding recreation services.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Council, also you have the next motion, we have in regards to police and churches bylaw.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Tilly, that FAN report number 02-2025 be received. And the council amend the 2025 fees and charges bylaw number 3524-24, Schedule F, Planning and Development Engineering as follows. Official plan section A, delete site-specific amendment of $900. B, add minor administrative revisions to official plan by amendment with exemption from provincial approval in the amount of $3,900 condominium section. C, add the word exemption to plan of condominium where previously approved site plan control agreement of $5,700. D, delete request to exempt from draft plan of condominium of $1,230. And E, add condominium conversion in the amount of $11,480. And that bylaw number 3536-25, being bylaw to amend bylaw 3534-24, Schedule F to establish fees and charges for various services provided by the Township of North Dumfries be enacted.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, Councillor Williams, the first and second reading of the bylaw, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Williman, that the following bylaws be read first and second time. 7.1 bylaw number 3536-25, being bylaw to amend bylaw number 3534-24, Schedule F to establish fees and charges for various services provided by the Township of North Dumfries. And 8 bylaw number 3537-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special budget council meeting held on January 13, 2024.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councillor Tilly. the next
Moved by
motion.
myself, second by Councillor Ossner, that bylaws numbers, bylaw numbers 3536-25 and 3537-25 be read a third and final time, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councillor Roman, I thought we were going to miss you, but there's one for Councillor Roman. Councillor Roman, please.
Moved by myself, to by Council Williams, that whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 7:49 p.m. and resolved at this meeting.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Well done, Councillor.